Debunking Genetic Slave, Part 2.1. In this video, we are going to be addressing the next things. A video uploaded by Genetic Beast in which he tried to respond to my arguments poorly, called Jason Blaha Lifting Slave. How much protein do you need to maximize muscle growth? Which has this thumbnail. Whether sarcoplasmic hypertrophy justifies the growth that those who train regularly, multiple times a week with regular or high volume and intensity, who Genetic Beast calls chronic lifters, as opposed to periodic lifters, experience in their muscles. If they can grow in this way, like you're watching right here, just by regularly training in this modality called chronic lifting, because of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Whether sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is related to glycogen loading, and whether glycogen loading can be the cause for the increase in muscle size in those who don't periodically lift and train regularly in this fake modality called chronic lifting, with the protective effects of the repeated bout effect on. And also, we are going to be addressing whether muscle satellite cells confuse with fibers and induce myofibrillar hypertrophy in absence of damage, or in presence of damage from oxidative stress, hypoxic environments, and etc.
Well, hello guys, we're going to do a new video responding to Genetic Beast right here, because he has tried to reply to my previous videos in some of his videos. Like in the middle of his videos, he didn't make an entire video debunking my claims specifically, but he tried to do so in some of his videos. The replies that he made were pretty lame, I think, so this isn't something that will be primarily aimed at debunking what he says, because it is very easy to debunk what he says. We are also going to debunk some more notions in regards to sarcoplasmic muscles, and also in regards to muscle damage being necessary for growth. We have already done that in the last videos inside of my channel. Let's see. We go here, we go here. That was a video from Flatzoid. I also have to debunk this guy, but that would be something for later. Let's go here. And, well, we have these two videos. The main topics of each video were myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy respectively for this one, and mechanical load for this one. Well, for this one he hasn't made any reply. The things that I was talking about were just like mini responses that didn't have any arguments even. They are very easy to debunk. We're going to do that right here. And also, I want to show you some of the comments right here, because I want to show you how dishonest this guy is. Let's go right here. And to show you that he doesn't even read the things that are being said in the video. Well, it seems that he has deleted the comments, but he commented right here. He ended up deleting the comment because he noticed that he was wrong, that I didn't reply to the videos that he made, and that I was only making things up. Well, if you go to this video right here, and you go right into this place, right here you would see that I have the video right here and it is playing.
So you're saying basically that in response to exercise, the main thing that is
Let's see, where can we see that? But well, you see that the time bar progresses with the video, so you kind of know that I am watching it.
Yes, I have the article right here, and I have a part that I want to show.
Well, you see that I replied to each of the things he said in this video, so well, that was really dishonest from his part, because he said that I didn't reply to what he said and that I only made things up. Well, that's completely false. I showed you right here why that is false, just so that he doesn't keep lying about these things that he can't reply to. And well, let's go through each of the things that we have proven already, and then let's see what videos we will be disproving today. And just so you can know, I want to make a video for each video that he uploads, because in most of the videos that he uploads he says the same thing over and over again. So if he constantly keeps repeating things that I have already debunked right here and also right here, it is a fruitless work to keep repeating the same things that have been already said to him, so that he knows that what he is saying is outdated and debunked. So I won't be making a reply to each of his videos, right? Only in this video, I will take some of his videos as an example to introduce this topic right here of the second core. But I won't be making a specific reply to each of the videos he makes. I will be replying to the usual arguments he keeps repeating over and over again. So take this as a debunking of all of the arguments he uses. Don't take this video as something that is only debunking these videos right here. It is debunking all of the things he constantly keeps repeating in every one of his videos. As a matter of fact, I have commented that to him, I believe in that video. And, well, not here, right here. And, well, he said, you review my video, idiot, and prove what is wrong that I say, and post-dummy, you can notice that he doesn't know how to write correctly in English. He has a lot of typos and a lot of mistakes. I don't know if he has ever learned how to write correctly, but, well, I wasn't expecting much from an autistic retard like this one right here. And I replied to him. I already debunked it in literally 3 comments, this video right here. Why would I need to make a video about everything you say if most of the things you say are already covered in the parts 1 and 1.2 debunking you? Also, you don't even respond to your videos. Well, you know this argument. And he says, no comment making fake stuff. Well, he hasn't proven that anything that I say is fake stuff, so that's just an assumption that he wasn't able to prove because he didn't respond to the videos, like to the arguments that were presented inside of them and the videos that I used to back them up. So this is a baseless assertion. I asked him so that he would point out where I said fake stuff, and I also mentioned to him that I always back up my arguments with studies, and well, he decided not to reply, it seems. And this is the main argument why I won't keep doing a video for each thing he says. Not only because I have to do a video about goatees. If you go right here into my docs, let's see if we can see right here. We have the arguments that goatees makes, and I think that I also have the studies right here. Yeah, right here. Well, I have to read all of this. And it is a lot because we're talking about almost 78 studies. That's a lot of studies, so that's why I don't have enough time to spare with someone that won't engage in any kind of discussion, nor will respond to my videos, and also keeps repeating the same things over and over again, so that I don't have the need to keep updating my arguments, because they are, they keep being valid to debunk the things he keeps saying over and over again. Sorry if that was kind of difficult to understand, but well, I repeat, I don't have to repeat all of these arguments that I make, because he's the one who keeps repeating the same points that have been debunked by me. That's the main argument for me not making a video on each thing he says. Just to make it simple. Now, let's stop with the yapping and let's start debunking what he says. Mainly in this video, because, no, sorry, this video no, I only wanted to show you the comments I make right here. I don't really find anything important in this video to debunk. Also, I debunked it in the comments, so if it was so easy to debunk, I think that this doesn't deserve a video, and he wasn't able to reply to me. He only said that in an eccentric example as well, I replied to him, and well, he didn't reply anything. Same here, and same here. So, and also he says, you review a video and use proof to back up your false claims that I used, because I provided proof for everything I said, and also, he says that my claims are false without showing why they are false. Again, a baseless assertion that he cannot prove. I think that this is the case because he doesn't know what to say about all of the things that I'm showing him. So he has to resort to this kind of baseless assertions so that he tries to convince himself that he is winning the argument or doing something, which he clearly isn't because he hasn't replied to any of the arguments that I made in my video. And, well, he tried to, but his reply was pretty lame, so... And also, this guy right here tells him that he's looking like a child, so... And his response is, what the fuck? Written in an incredibly hilarious way. Are you talking about, dog? So, well, he's basically proving what they are insulting him for, so that's also kind of funny. We won't be reviewing this video. We will be reviewing this video first. Okay? So, let's go.
Alright friends, see you in the back, man. But the new video Jason Blaha just popped up about 3 hours ago. I don't know. I just saw this video now.
Let's put it on 2x speed because this will take like 3 hours if I were to review it at regular speed.
And I think we just covered this, man. I don't know why we're doing it again, but okay, here we go again. How much protein do we need to max?
That's the exact same thing I say about you. I already covered most of the things you say, but I will be covering them again, and I will also expand this second core of my argumentation.
Maximize muscle growth. Well, that's really easy. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown.
Which has been already debunked in the last 2 videos, but, well, keep repeating that, because you aren't talking about any kind of stimulus, which is something that you need for that protein that you're producing to be incorporated into the myofibers, because if that protein doesn't have any stimuli that makes it so that it has to go to the place which is receiving that stimuli, then the protein will go nowhere. Also, he isn't specifying what proteins he's talking about, because the body produces a lot of proteins, mainly hormones, and also we have proteins specialized in ATP production, so this argument is really weak. He isn't even specifying what protein he's talking about. He isn't talking about the stimuli that is required for that protein to go somewhere. That argument is really weak. I have already debunked it. I won't do it again, point by point. Watch the first part of my series and the first 0.2 part, right? Let's go.
To maximize muscle growth. He's going to tell you other words, but I'm going to explain what he's trying to exactly say.
Hey everybody, it's Jason here, and I will discuss with you guys the amount of protein that is needed to maximize muscle mass based upon all the available literature and actual serious training lifters. Because quite frankly, we don't care about recreational literature numbers like this. It's just not that important.
Let's skip it to a point in which he replies to.
Seriously. Look, man.
Seriously. So again, we only really
Optimal number training seriously. Look, man, if you're a serious person that is lifting, you definitely want to see that breakdown, okay?
care about the data that
Yes, you have to exceed the amount of protein that you rake so that you can grow, because if you rake more than what you are producing, if you rake more bricks than the amount of bricks that you are producing, you won't build a house, because you would end up with a deficit of bricks. But just because you have bricks, or just because the amount of bricks that you produce is greater than the amount of bricks that are being destroyed, doesn't mean that you will have a house. You need all of the things that are required for a house apart from bricks. You require cement, people working for you, building that house, and well, I suppose that you get the analogy. This positive protein balance is not enough for you to build muscles, so that is false.
is looking at
And it is funny that he says that the gym doesn't build muscles. If the gym didn't make any contribution to building muscles, then he wouldn't have any reason to train, to periodically lift, so that's kind of funny. He should stop periodically lifting if he wanted to be true with his argument. So that's not only hypocritical, but also you can see that the argument is very weak in that way.
additive weightlifters sometimes, whether it's weightlifting, powerlifting, serious bodybuilder.
Okay, I'm about to get into this. He's confusing the data with average people in the street and lifting people, okay? This 1 point whatever gram per fucking kilogram. You gotta eat. He's an idiot.
Well, that is completely false. We have the studies right here. They weren't only made on novice people, they were also made on elite bodybuilders, which are people that have incredibly long sessions that destroy completely their muscles. And you can say, well, but they are adapted, so they won't get that much damage as a novice. Well, if they get less damage than a novice, they would need a lesser amount of protein to grow. So if you consider this to be true, then you're basically saying that the amount of protein that novices consume, which is 1 gram per pound of body weight, is more than the amount that you need. So if you are contradicting yourself, because you have said that this amount of protein is not enough, but now, based upon what you said, you're saying basically that this amount of protein is a lot more than what you need. And let's see the studies that I'm talking about. First of all, training harder doesn't necessarily equate with consuming more proteins. Let's read it right here. We have the article right here, and also the articles that he cites in this article. If you still think that you need more than 0.82 grams per pound because you think you train harder than these test subjects, or that you're breaking more fibers, think again. Lemon et al. Studied bodybuilders training 1.5 hours per day, 6 days per week, and still concluded this amount was needed. You could say that because of the high amount of frequency and the high amount of training, they would receive the repeated bout effect. But this study was made on novice bodybuilders. This study about Lemon et al. Was made on novice bodybuilders. So if you're talking about novices, they don't have enough time to get these adaptations in only 1 week. They wouldn't get this repeated bout effect if there hasn't been enough time between one bout of exercise and the next one. So we can completely move out of the table the repeated bout effect in this case, and we can consider that even if we are training in such a way that we are getting adaptations that makes our muscles stronger, which is also a funny thing about what you preach, because you're preaching for your muscles to be weaker and be easier and be more prone to damage, which means that you want fragile muscles, first of all, and also that you don't want to grow, because, and this makes completely sense even without the study that I presented in the first video, which explains why the repeated bout effect is necessary for growth, which is this study. Let's see where it is. Right here, we have another article that proves that myofibrillar muscular hypertrophy can only start happening after the repeated bout effect has had its effect on the individual. Well, that study proves that you need a repeated bout effect to grow, but that's not the main argument only. Let's use some common sense in this case, right? If you have to stop training so that the repeated bout effect stops making an effect, right? If you have to stop training so that you lose your adaptations that you have received in the last bout of exercises, then you will lose them, right? You will lose all of the adaptations that you have received. In the next exercise that you do, the main reason why you will grow will be because you will receive the same adaptations that you lost by stopping this training regime after this first bout of exercise. Let's put it in these terms. You train right here, first bout of exercise, and this second bout. So because of the first bout, you receive some adaptations, and based upon what he says that you want to diminish these adaptations so that in the second bout of exercise you can successfully damage your muscles. Well, if you wait long enough, you will need to wait 8 to 12 weeks so that this makes effect, so that this is effectively periodically lifting, because the repeated bout effect can last for 8 to 12 weeks, as it is said right here. The newly regenerated fibers, which is the fibers that have been damaged in the first bout of exercise, become susceptible again to eccentric exercise in 8 to 12 weeks. So you have to train this amount of time. Suppose that you did wait this amount of time, or let's say that let's take another case right here, in which we will use another time duration, which will be 7 days. These are weeks. If you stop training right here, you would lose, well, not that rapidly, you would start losing all of the adaptations that you have received in the first bout of exercise, right? You will lose them, you will lose them, you will lose them, and in this second bout of exercise, because you have lost all of this right here, you would in fact receive a lot of damage and a lot of growth. But the net growth that you have received, which can be signaled by a line that, well, let's put it right here, with a line that goes at this height, will be the exact same, right? The only reason why you have grown here is because you have lost all of the adaptations that you made in this first bout of exercise. In other words, you haven't received more growth. You have only recovered what you have lost during this time period. So you haven't grown. This is just an illusion. This is fake growth, because the growth that you received is the growth that you lost. So, well, that is why his training regime, which is periodic lifting, doesn't make any logical sense. We aren't even using articles, even though I have mentioned some articles that already debunk this notion. But, well, let's debunk this in the short term, right? In the short term, you wouldn't lose as much gains as you would right here. You would still be prone to damage because the repeated bout effect takes this amount of time to wear out. So, in this case, what would happen in this first bout of exercise would be that you would grow a lot, right? You will grow in the same manner, and while you train, you will plateau for a little, and sorry, oh, that wasn't something that I wanted to do. You would start losing some of your gains, and in the second bout of exercise, we're talking about the adaptations that you make in this first bout, right? In the second bout of exercise, you would go back up right here to the same height you were before. Okay, let's delete this right here because it is kind of misleading. So, you have received damage, yes, you have received some DOMs probably, but these DOMs and this damage is only indicating you that you will recover all of the adaptations that you have lost via the training. We are in the same exact problem. You are keeping the exact same gains. You're trying to make this illusion that you're progressing by by consistently losing the progress that you have made. You're just recovering the progress that you have already made right here and that you have lost via the training. So this is like trying to fool yourself, right? Because you're trying to fool yourself thinking that you're growing by periodically lifting, because you say, well, I've experienced a lot of damage and a lot of growth. Well, the amount of growth and damage that you have received happens because you have lost all of the adaptations, or well, in this case, a good amount of the adaptations that you made in this first bout of exercise by the training. So what happens here is only a process of recovering those gains. You are not getting greater gains. You are getting the same amount of gains because you have lost the adaptations that you have made and you have recovered them. And because you have lost the adaptations that you made via the repeated bout effects, you obviously are going to receive damage. But you're creating this damage artificially, because this damage right here is not an indicator of growth. It's only an indicator that you will recover the thing that you have lost. I hope that it's very easy to understand because I try to put it in very simple terms. So let's go back to his video right here. Oh yeah, this is recording. I thought that it wasn't recording.
Things like that. These are the numbers that we want to draw from the studies. And what's been found consistently is that even these are
Ah yes, and also I had to mention that protein synthesis right here gets more how can I say it, more efficient the more experienced you are, because the more experienced you are, the less protein you need, because you're damaging your muscles, you are destroying your muscles less. And you will say, well, but I am getting less growth. No, this is good, not only because, well, we have proven ad nauseum with all of these studies that I have mentioned in the first video that you don't require damage to grow, so receiving less damage is not an indicator of you not growing. Also, I have debunked in the last video his attempt at debunking this first video that showed the activation of the IGF-1 in a similar manner in two groups of subjects, one of the groups that received damage and the other group that didn't receive damage. They both received the same amount of IGF-1 activation, which is a factor that it is involved in activation of the satellite cells, proliferation, and also differentiation. We will see that right here in this part, which explains all of these factors that intervene in activation, differentiation, and all of that things, like the IGF-1 and GF2 and all of that. But well, we have all of these studies that prove that you don't need damage to grow, so receiving less damage is not necessarily bad, and I would say that it's even better because it means that you are damaging your body less and that your body can expend more proteins in the growth process. And this is also backed up by the study that I mentioned right here, which shows that you require the repeated bout effect to grow, because the damage that you receive while you're a novice lifter, or the damage that you received while you're being unadapted to one kind of training, is so great that the amount of resources that can be spent in further growing the myofibers is low. Because most of the resources that are being created by the fibers, which are mainly myofibrillary proteins, are being used in the reparation and regeneration of the myofibers that have died, because a lot of myofibers die while you're unaccustomed to training. They don't only get microtrauma, they die, and they are being used to replenish all of the micro-injuries that you can see inside of your muscles, right? So because you have received a lot of damage, you have in gamer terms tanked a lot of damage. You're like a tank class and you have received a lot of damage. Most of your resources are being used in just repairing that damage. The amount of resources left to grow or to make your myofibers stronger than before is incredibly scarce, because you have already used up all of your reserves, right? And also this study proves that the more advanced you are, the less protein intake you need, because you are damaging the muscles less and you don't need damage to grow, as we have shown here, and we will show again, because I have even more evidence about that. And well, it's kind of redundant, I think, because he hasn't even debunked this first article right here. Well, he tried to, using a study about CK, but I already debunked the study about CK in my last video in mechanical loading, so I want to address it here again. And well, I think that this video will have to also have two parts because I have to talk about a lot of things right here, okay? So let's keep going. And also we have the studies that I'm talking about right here. The finding the more experienced you are, the less protein you need. You have this study, this study, this study, and here you have quotes that you can read if you want that prove that the more advanced you are, the less protein you need. So you genetic beasts, which are incredibly advanced, I would say, because, well, even though you're mostly fat, you have some muscles, I have to concede that, you need less protein than someone who hasn't been training for a lot of time. Also, you have said in some videos that you need around 4 grams of protein per pound of body weight, something that is absurd, because in no study ever done has been shown that you need that amount of protein, nor does your body have a way to use that amount of protein, because it is a lot. We are talking about if you weigh, let's say, 200 pounds, you would have to eat 800 grams of protein, which is a lot. So I think that it doesn't even make sense if you look at it like that, but it makes less sense if you consider that you don't have any kind of evidence to back that up.
Higher needs, the maximum muscle growth occurs around 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight.
That is in the average person in public in the street.
Not really. We're talking about bodybuilders which are experienced, and also bodybuilders that are really growing and are not just creating this artificial damage by the training yourself. We're talking about someone which is really growing because he's reaping the positive effects of the repeated bout effect of, and because you need it to grow, as we have already mentioned, and that is fairly similar in, you could say, body composition to you. So no study has ever shown that. It says it right here, but I'm more advanced at these gigs. Another frequently heard objection is that people need more protein because they are more experienced than the study population, which is the exact same thing that you have already said. Well, Tarnopolsky, which is a Russian name, I suppose, used elite bodybuilders and found that less protein was needed than in novice bodybuilders. We can see a study if you want, right here. Experiments were performed on 6 elite bodybuilders, so that's completely debunked right there.
Okay? And here's the thing. Protein is being built up and broken down throughout the day. It's being built up and broken down. I know people that will that can practically eat 2 steaks a day.
Well, I know people from Mars also. That's not a valid way of argumentation. You're using anecdotal evidence, and that's simply embodied when it comes to science.
Okay, regular people. But here's the thing. Who is really regular? People are working. They work physical jobs. The majority of people, they work a lot of physical jobs. They're tired. They're physically working. I don't know, these office people are kind of sitting around. They're still doing something. You know what I mean? But again, more physically demanding the job, the more you are going to consume. Think about that.
Approximately.
Yes, the more you damage yourself, the more you're going to consume. But the repeated bout effect, specifically, that I am not going to repeat again, that the benefits that it has, because we have already talked about it here and in the first video. But well, not only is the repeated bout effect needed for growth, but also it is best for your growth because it makes you consume less and receive less oxidative damage, receive less ROS, receive less inflammatory damage, and receive less damage of every possible thing that you could think about. Not only because of that, and well, we have already shown that you don't need damage to grow, but also, since it makes you receive less damage, it makes you consume less protein to rebuild this damage, and since it makes you receive less damage, how can I say it? Your available protein, let's say, the available protein that you have for regeneration and for growth, for 2 different processes, is changed when you have the repeated bout effect, because since you are getting less damage, more of those resources can be used in growth alone, because this other process, which is the regenerative process, is consuming less materials. So that's why it's positive, and also why the people that work in these kind of jobs still don't need that amount of protein, right?
Point 8, does that apply to a person that sits in an office all day, or a person that is working in a factory lifting boxes all day for 6 hours or 7 hours?
Yes, it changes with physical exercise. I think that Mario Rios has made a video about it, so the regular person only needs 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, but that's the only right thing that you have said up to this point.
See what I mean?
The wrong thing that you have tried to imply before is that people who do physical jobs need a lot of protein, that I have already debunked, but that comparison is true.
What is this average? What is that? What is that? Are you replacing proteins that you broke down. If you're not replacing more than you're breaking down, then you'll shrink. That's why people in the gym are always complaining, hey, I'm shrinking. I'm actually losing muscle working out. Yeah, you are. You will lose more muscle. If you lift heavy weights in the gym, you're going to shrink. You're going to get smaller if you don't keep up with the amount of proteins that you're losing in the gym.
Yes, if you keep destroying your body without eating enough, obviously you're going to receive muscular atrophy. But it is really hard to come to a point in which you are losing muscle, considering that most people in the gym, at least, are somewhat informed about diet, and they usually follow the bro's recommendation, which is 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if most of those people are consuming 1 gram per pound of body weight, they are above the amount of protein that they need. So we cannot blame them being small because of their protein intake, since it is enough to sustain growth. And we have already talked about the amount of protein that you need, so I won't repeat that.
You understand me? Yeah, that's why people are complaining I'm actually shrinking. Hey, you're shrinking. You are shrinking.
And well, let's also ignore that he's completely ignoring all of the other confounding factors that could possibly make it so that they are not growing, like not training hard enough, and also you have to consume carbohydrates. They are incredibly important for your growth because they suppress protein breakdown, since insulin is a anti-catabolic hormone. Okay, so he's saying basically that sorry.
If you don't keep up with the amount of proteins that you're losing in the gym. You understand me? Yeah, that's why people are complaining I'm actually shrinking. Hey, you're shrinking.
Well, he was talking about why people was shrinking. We were talking about some confounding factors, and yeah, I wanted to also mention that insulin was shown in some studies to upregulate protein synthesis and decrease the amount of breakdown that you experience. In some other studies, the opposite has been shown, so don't take my word for it. But we don't have a clear role for insulin in growth. But most of the studies show that this growth is positively impacted by insulin, and some others show that it works either by inhibition of protein breakdown or a stimulation of protein synthesis, right? So, well, like it says here, insulin's anti-catabolic mechanism in humans remains controversial. Some reports show either stimulation of protein synthesis or inhibition of protein breakdown, but the thing that we know right here, because it is talking about diminishing the amount of protein you break or increasing the amount of protein that you consume, we know that insulin positively impacts the mechanism by which proteins are produced. It positively impacts the net protein balance. So since it positively impacts the net protein balance, it is recommended to eat a diet with carbohydrates for some growth, right? Okay, so let's keep watching this video.
You are shrinking. He's an idiot.
Grams per pound of body weight. Those use grams. All right, now when I make this statement,
Okay, per pound for body weights, whatever. 1 gram. Okay, I'll already disprove this right away. Okay, here's NCBI again. One more time. One more time.
It's funny that he doesn't even use specific studies. He just Googles things right here in Google search, and he takes the first thing that appears right there. So I only did that thing with the insulin because I am not going to talk specifically about it in this video, but that's okay because that's not a main topic of my video. I'm not trying to debunk anything that he's talking about. That was just an extra thing that I wanted to include in this video. That's like extra information, right? But this thing right here that he's using has the purpose of debunking something that the other person is saying, which is very bad because you're using the first thing that you find in Google search. So it not only shows dishonesty when it comes to the discussion that you're trying to form with this other person, which is Blaha, and I don't know why you make daily videos about Blaha, but it seems that you're kind of obsessed with him. I don't really know the guy. I just know that he's vegan, and well, that's not a diet that I would support, but okay. Or well, he's plant-based, I don't know. I don't support him really, but you're kind of obsessed with him, man. So I don't know what he has done to you. But let's go again to the thing that he was mentioning. If you're going to use your sources for debunking something, you have to make sure that your sources or your studies are not the first thing that appears in Google after searching something that you want to know, because that's literally the definition of confirmation bias. You are taking the first thing that appears in Google right here, not even reading the article that has been shown to you, because it clearly shows that this article is in blue in blue font, so you have never seen this article before. It shows that you have just read the first thing that appeared in your face, and that is really dishonest coming from you. But it's also, as I have already said, something related to confirmation bias, because you are desperately trying to prove your point by doing these stupid things that shouldn't take place in a discussion. And also, he's going to say that this article debunks what he has said, but he's not going to make this point. He's not going to carry this point correctly.
And CBI, right there at the bottom, nutrition muscle protein synthesis. This is a section. If muscle is going to gain mass, if it's going to gain mass, why are they telling you that? Are they highlighted here? They're telling you, if muscle is going to gain mass, guess what? Protein synthesis must exceed what? Protein.
No, they didn't highlight that to you. Google did that, and Google is not a person. And also, just because it says, and first of all, this is agreeing with what we have shown right here, because we're consistently talking about protein synthesis and protein breakdown. So in all of these studies that are talking about maximization of protein synthesis, because we're talking about maximizing your protein synthesis, we are taking into consideration this equation right here, which is the amount of muscle you build and the amount of muscle you lose. It has to be, the balance has to be positive for you to grow. This is obvious information and in no way debunks this data right here, because we are strictly talking about the amount of protein that you need so that this balance that you're going to talk about remains positive. So they are considering this balance in these studies, and they are in fact talking about how to upregulate it so that it becomes positive. So I don't know why or in which way this debunks any of the things that have been said in this video, but let's see what he tries to say.
Protein breakdown. Now that you have a window for protein synthesis, let's say there's a window, but it's also a window for protein breakdown. But there's a window for protein synthesis. You understand me right now? You worked out. But it's also a window for protein breakdown. So when you go to the gym, you're breaking down proteins. That's what I try to explain to people. You should eat a shitload.
Yes, and you keep breaking protein after a gym. But the amount of protein that you need is not dictated by this sentence. This sentence is only saying that you will lose muscle and you will gain muscle. In that order, exactly. You will break your myofibers and you will gain more strength and myofibril growth after that. It is not saying at any point the amount of protein that you need to remain with a positive protein balance. So, and this is the question that these studies explore. So, this is not answered. This question about what is the amount of protein you need is not answered in this study right here. I don't even know why you wrote it up, but it seems that you have searched in Google for something that at least tried to support your argument. It doesn't even support your argument, because the conclusion that you're drawing out from the study or from a part of the study that you haven't even read is false. It cannot be drawn from this study, as I already shown.
Protein, and maybe a complex carb before you go to the gym. Yeah, a lot of people, they go fasted.
Yes, you need to eat something before going to the gym, but preferably somewhat 2 hours or 1 hour before, because when you're digesting protein, carbohydrates, and fats, you require energy to do it so, because your enzymes need energy to break down proteins and obtain amino acids, break fats and obtain saturated fats, and some other materials, also vitamins and other things. And because you need energy to do so, you wouldn't want to eat exactly before training, because the amount of energy that you would have to damage your muscles, in case that you're a novice lifter, or the amount of energy that you would have to exert force and receive a mechanical stimuli that we have shown in the last video, that is the primary factor that affects hypertrophy, not damage. You're going to want to eat 1 hour or 2 hours before training.
Or starvation. They go lifting in the gym. Are you crazy? You're breaking down more proteins. And now you have a window for protein synthesis, but you have a window for protein breakdown. And so that window in protein breakdown can last 24, 48, even 72 hours. It can keep going for the next 1, 2, 3 days. I bet you didn't know that, yeah. So if you're...
I have the graph right here. It also changes with the repeated bout effect, because you break down less protein and you produce more protein. Well, you have more protein available for growth, right? But it's another point that shows why the repeated bout effect is positive for you. But this degeneration stage only lasts for 1 day, so that's also wrong. This protein breakdown window only lasts for 1 day. It says it right here, myofiber necrosis, so that is false. Let's see what he says next.
You're not eating enough. Your bagels and your 2 boiled eggs and your Cocoa Puffs and all that are not just not doing it for you. You understand me? And so you keep coming back in the gym, breaking down proteins. Here's the best part. I'm gonna do growth splits, man. I'm gonna do shoulder day and forearm day. Yeah, you are gonna do shoulder day, and then tomorrow you're gonna do what, chest, and then you're gonna do back. Well, what if your shoulders are being overworked? Now your shoulders are being more overworked. You understand me? When are you building up the protein?
When you build your chest by training your chest using a growth split, you are nowhere near the exhaustion point of your shoulders. You are not exhausting your shoulders when you train chest. If your shoulders feel exhausted after training chest, you are doing something very wrong. You are doing something that is not okay. The amount of saturation, or well, you would say exhaustion, that you receive after training chest in your shoulders is not enough to justify training a whole entire day. Oh, sorry, it's not enough to justify resting for a whole entire day so that your shoulders can recover. It doesn't justify that rest because the amounts of training or stimuli or exhaustion, you could say also, that your shoulders are receiving is not near enough the point of exhaustion of your shoulders. What do you even think? Do you think that your shoulders are made of plastic or glass? Your shoulders, which are a secondary mover in this exercise, in chest press, in chest flies, are not even being brought up to the point of exhaustion because they are a secondary muscle of the exercise. So it doesn't make any sense from that point of view.
Proteins. And then you go to your chest, you're fucked. And then you're doing your back now. So now your shoulders and your chest are getting overworked with the forearms. So you never...
Your back and your chest use different parts of your shoulder, so it doesn't even make sense from the anatomical point of view what you're trying to say. Well, this man is really dumb. This man is the definition of Dunning-Kruger, because he thinks that he knows a lot, but he keeps repeating these things that are incredibly stupid, and you don't need to be an expert to debunk what he says. It's really dumb.
It really works out for me. The best is, hey man, I'm gonna do my arms today. Oh, you're gonna do your arms, are you? And then the next day you're gonna do your back. Holy shit, you're fucking doing your arms again. Oh, I'm gonna do a bench press the next day.
Yes, you are doing again your arms, but in a bigger, or sorry, in an increased intensity. Because when you are doing pull-ups or when you are doing any exercise that involves your back, you are going to use your biceps, for example. But they are a secondary muscle of this exercise that we're talking about. If you're doing a row, or if you're doing a pull-up, the main muscle activated and the main thing that should be exhausted right there should be the back. You should feel somewhat your muscles in your arm and in your shoulders, but they shouldn't be exhausted in any way. They shouldn't receive any kind of exhaustion. If you receive exhaustion in your shoulders after working your back, you're doing something wrong. If you exhaust your biceps while you're training back, you're again doing something wrong. You're doing the technique wrong, and therefore it makes sense what he's saying. But it only makes sense from the point of view of someone that doesn't know how to train. So I suppose that he's self-referencing himself. It wouldn't make sense in any other way.
Still doing your arms, you're using your arms again. Again, do shoulder day. Guys, do shoulder.
Yes, you are using your arms again, but supposing that you did the technique correctly, your arms should be far away from their point of exhaustion. Remember that they are a secondary muscle in that exercise, and they shouldn't be exhausted at all after doing that exercise because they are not a primary mover. And since they are not a primary mover, feeling them exhausted is a sign for doing the technique wrong.
Shoulder day, but you're using your arms again. You're fucking stupid. You understand? People are so dumb.
Yes, you are more dumb than the people that you're trying to criticize. But let's keep going.
People forget that. Like, you eat more than that. You have to advocate more than that. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely true. Doesn't make it less.
He looks so puffy now. Look at him. He's so sarcoplasmic. He's mentally retarded. You're looking at a mental coach, bro.
We are going to talk about sarcoplasmic muscles. Also, I don't know if we are going to have enough time to talk about them right here, but let's talk about them. This right here cannot be justified by sarcoplasmic muscles. Not only have we showed the studies in the last video, in the first one, that showed that for, I think it was a 17% expansion of the myofibers, a 3% expansion of the sarcoplasm occurs. So in order to grow like this, by just expanding your sarcoplasm, you will need like 30, 40, 50 years of training, 60 years of training. And even so, your muscles would be mostly occupied by your myofibers because they grow at a pace of 17%, while your sarcoplasm grows at a pace of 3%. You can see that right here in this study that you keep referencing as a complete idiot and also buffoon, which is called Sarcoplasmic Hypertrophy, a unicorn science. And well, you call it unicorn, which is incredibly retarded. If you go to this part right here, a 17%, if you increase your fiber cross-sectional area in a 20%, let's say, a 17% of that is due to muscle myofibral protein increase, and a 3% would be due to an increase in sarcoplasm volume. This is the ratio that your muscles follow to grow. So for you to grow mainly your sarcoplasm, it would take a lot of time. We're talking about decades of working. So, and also still most of your muscle would be made of myofibrils, so you couldn't say that this body that he has is fake and sarcoplasmic. And also 75% of your muscles are water, so when you talk about glycogen loading, loading your muscles with water. Well, it's kind of funny because your muscles are already made by 75% of water, so you can't blame this increasing the sarcoplasm for introducing more water into your muscles. Let's say that you don't want more water inside of your muscles because you already have at least 75% of water inside of them. So it is kind of contradictory yet that you claim that sarcoplasmic expansion is only made by increasing glycogen storage and therefore water, which is something that we will debunk also, because it cannot be justified at all by glycogen loading. But he is criticizing the fact that you are only growing by filling your muscles with glycogen and water. They are already filled up with 75% water, which is kind of funny. Let's go to the fourth figure right here. Okay, so this shows why the sarcoplasmic expansion is needed for you to grow your myofibers. So we have two methods in which this can be considered needed for you to grow. We have first the sarcoplasm expansion hypothesis of hypertrophy and the myofibrillar expansion hypothesis of hypertrophy. We can see right here that the ribosomes as well as the enzymes involved with ATP production are giving some energy to these nuclei, and the sarcoplasm volume is being increased. Well, while this increase happened, which is the sarcoplasm expansion of this right here, cell swelling, which is a mechanism produced by the pump, which you think that doesn't create growth, but as it said right here, cell swelling triggers fusion of satellite cell nucleus. So cell swelling is one of the mechanisms by which you grow your myofibers. And also we have the other article that I mentioned in the last video, which was the article about, let's see, where it is. Have a lot of information right here that debunks you, so it's kind of hard to find that study specifically. Right here, this study shows some things about osmotic pressure and its role in myofibrillar hypertrophy and satellite cell activation. And as I said right here, there has been a study published about the mechanistic relationship between the pump and muscle protein synthesis. Well, the pump is related to myofibrillar growth. That's the main issue. And well, it didn't even have anything to do with the thing that I was trying to explain, but let's keep moving on with this explanation. Each time you increase your sarcoplasm, your sarcolemma does so that you can put more myofibers inside of your cell. Because as you can see, you have 4 nuclei right here. And after expanding your sarcoplasm, the amount of myofibers that you have increase, because now there is enough space for more myofibers inside of the sarcoplasm, you could say also. But well, this is the sarcolemma, so you have more space inside of the sarcolemma for more myofibers, and because it has expanded. And in this third image, you receive more myofibers. What this hypothesis is trying to explain is that each time your sarcoplasm expands, it permits the further incorporation of more satellite cells that transform in myonuclei inside of your myofiber, and therefore the expansion of the sarcoplasm is needed for you to have more myofibers inside of your sarcolemma. So it's basically saying that sarcoplasm expansion goes before myofiber accretion. So it's basically saying that you need to expand your available space to put more things inside of the sarcolemma. You need to have a bigger space to put more myofibers inside of it. The other hypothesis is that you first experience the accretion of more nuclei, and after that accretion of more nuclei, your myofibers increase in size, so that this process can be repeated again. That's the two hypotheses. One says that the sarcoplasm expands before getting more nuclei, and the other says that you get more nuclei and then the sarcoplasm expands, so that this process can happen again. Okay, so they are basically both saying that your sarcoplasm needs to expand, right? So that's the conclusion that we get from this study that you mentioned most of the times, which is that we need the sarcoplasm to expand so that we can grow. So when you mock sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, you're being very dishonest, because it is needed for you to grow. So you are right now, or even after training, experiencing this kind of expansion of the sarcoplasm, because it is needed for you to grow more myofibers. So you're mocking a process that you need to grow. It doesn't make any sense. And let's keep on going with some more studies that prove you wrong. Let's see right here. Also, we have to talk about androgen receptors because they do regulate the muscle mass in humans, as it is shown with this study. And we have here asymmetrical division and more things that we will talk about, right? Okay, where was it? We had, where is it? I cannot find it right here. This article from, yeah, right here. Let's see this article which talks about this increasing in sarcoplasm size that you are mentioning in bodybuilders or in people like him who are doing supposedly sarcoplasmic training and are getting fake muscles. We have already debunked the notion that they are fake muscles because they are needed to grow, and we have already debunked the notion that you are getting this growth because of sarcoplasm, so because of sarcoplasmic growth, because the sarcoplasmic growth takes incredibly long to be increased at a noticeable size. For a 3% increase, you have a 17% increase in myofibril proteins. That is the ratio, right, which is proven in that study. Let's see and analyze this article right here. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, the bros were probably right. Does sarcoplasmic hypertrophy happen, and if so, what's the effect on overall muscle growth? Let's see some of the points made right here. It's been proposed that there are two ways your muscle fibers can grow: myofibril hypertrophy and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Is in theory accomplished by the expansion of the sarcoplasm inside the muscle fiber. This is illustrated by the middle picture in the image above. Well, we have already shown that this is needed for this to happen, but I am not going to repeat myself. Okay, now just to define these terms as accurately as possible, no one is suggesting that the sarcoplasm can't expand at all. Rather, myofibril hypertrophy implies, okay, that the sarcoplasm expands at roughly the same rate as the myofibrils grow and expand. As I have shown in my study right here. Sorry, I had to do something. Each time your myofibers increase a 17%, there is an increase of 3% in the sarcoplasm that accompanies the fiber growth. So, as I've already said, in order to grow these muscles mainly by an increase in sarcoplasm, you will need to increase each time you increase a 3% your sarcoplasm, a 17% your myofibers, which would still make your muscles mainly formed by myofibrils, so you wouldn't even achieve your objective, and it also renders impossible the hypothesis that most of his growth was achieved by an increase in sarcoplasm size, because it would take a lot of time, considering you can only increase a 3% the size of your sarcoplasm each time you train, and we are talking about a constant increase, an increase in the sarcoplasm that remains with time. We are not talking about this transient hypertrophy that occurs, well, it's not really hypertrophy, but this transient growth that occurs because of glycogen loading and the pump. That's a different thing which is not related to sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, as it will be shown in this study right here and in a video that I am going to show you about house of hypertrophy, right? Well, the thing is that if you want to, I have repeated this a lot of times, but let's repeat it again. If you want to increase your muscle size, your sarcoplasm somewhat, you have to increase your myofibers a lot more. So you will never have more myofibers than sarcoplasm, and you will never have a lot of sarcoplasm because it increases at an incredibly slow pace. 3% each 20% increase in mean fiber cross-sectional area. So no, this is not sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, nor it can be justified by saying this is sarcoplasmic and fake muscles. Okay, let's keep reading this article, and we will keep reviewing this video after we debunk all of the things he says about sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Okay, rather, myofibril hypertrophy implies that the sarcoplasm expands at roughly the same rate as the myofibrils growth and expand. It is not roughly at the same rate, okay? They took up 80%. He's making an example right here. So if myofibrils took up 80% of a room within the muscle fiber before, and the sarcoplasm took up 20% of a room within the muscle fiber, a doubling in fiber size, the proportion would still hold. Well, the proportion is this one right here, a 3% in sarcoplasm and a 17% increase in myofibril protein. He said that it is proportional. He didn't say that it was the same. It says that they expand at roughly the same rate, which means that the amount of growth that each of these units inside of the muscle receive is the same in regards to the percentage of space that they occupy. In this case, each time you increase it 20%, you have a 17% of myofibril protein and a 3% in sarcoplasm volume, because the myofibrils occupy a place that is much bigger than the amount of place that the sarcoplasm volume occupies, as you can see in this image right here. The sarcoplasm, which is this thin blue between the myofibers, it's incredibly small, so we cannot justify what you're saying, right? And well, they both grow at the same rate in relation to their original percentages. It doesn't mean that if you have a 20% increase in your fiber cross-sectional area, a 10% will be from myofibrils and 10% would be for sarcoplasmic expansion, right? It's referential to their original percentage that they occupy inside of your muscles. That's why you have a 3% increase each times you increase a 17% your myofibers. And sarcoplasmic hypertrophy implies that the sarcoplasm expands at a significantly faster rate than the myofibrils grow and divide. So it would mean that if this percentage increases a 5%, this percentage right here increases at 20%. It would still mean that you are getting more myofibral growth than sarcoplasmic growth, but okay, it's the same. And well, it says, so does sarcoplasmic hypertrophy happen, and does it meaningfully contribute to overall growth, muscle growth? Well, considering that you have to violate this ratio that we have established previously, it is something that hardly happens, right? And we will also review this study about six weeks of training, which is incredibly hilarious because they did 32 sets per compound exercise, which is someone that trains in high volume never does and never is going to do so. It is not representative of the people that he's trying to criticize. Okay, so in order for, as we have read up to this point, in order to grow in terms of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, you have to break this ratio right here. Okay, this is regular hypertrophy. We're talking about someone training in this regular training regime that is being, you could say, I don't know how to say it, but this training regime that is mostly used by all of the lifters around the world. So we're talking about something with regular volume, regular frequency. This is the ratio that occurs when you follow these regular guidelines that most lifters around the world follow. That's why they talk about conventional hypertrophy, okay? Which is the hypertrophy that you receive from conventional training, which is not the same as the training that you do, because we're talking about regular frequencies. Your frequencies of training are below average. They are once a week. So these training regimes are different from yours, and even so, they produce an increase in myofibers bigger than the increase in sarcoplasm that they produce. This ratio right here, okay? So, and it already debunks what you say, because the conventional hypertrophy you receive from the regular training regime, which is the generally accepted by the scientific community in response to resistant training. We're talking about a normal protocol with normal frequency, normal training, normal volume. We are not talking about some protocol that upregulates one of those variables a lot. So if you follow that protocol, which has a bigger frequency than what you do, you still have this ratio right here, which implies the absence of sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, okay? Let's keep reading this. So does sarcoplasmic hypertrophy happen, and does it meaningfully contribute to overall muscle growth? That's $1 million question. Well, he says that he has been skeptical about that. And the situation where sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is most invoked is when comparing bodybuilders to powerlifters or weightlifters. How can some 280 pounds bodybuilder get out-squatted by the 180 pound strength athlete? This cannot be explained by sarcoplasmic growth. Okay? He's going to say, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy explains this difference, the thinking goes. So he's trying to follow this line of reasoning. He's not saying that this is true. The bodybuilders must just have non-functional sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, making their muscles bigger without making them stronger, since it's the myofibrils that contain the contracted proteins. This is the exact same hypothesis that you are talking about in this video. He's going to debunk it. However, as I'm sure any consistent reader of this site is aware, strength also has a massive skill component. But not only that, we're talking about central nervous system adaptations. The main reason why they have more strength is because each myofiber, or the additional amount of size, or the additional amount of contracted proteins that they are getting, these power lifters, are also being assigned to a motor neuron. So that means that powerlifters can use all of their myofibers while bodybuilders can't, because they don't have these motor neurons that can manipulate all of these extra contracted proteins that they have received, okay? That's the thing that explains it. So he says it right here. I realize that I might have been in the wrong for dismissing sarcoplasmic hypertrophy just because it's a poor explanation for the phenomenon it's invoked to explain. Expressed more formally, which is the argument that he's saying, if someone claims A causes B, but B is actually a more likely cause for C than A, which is central nervous system adaptations, you can then conclude that A doesn't exist. You just conclude that B is a better explanation for C than A is. So sarcoplasmic expansion cannot explain this difference between strength athletes and bodybuilders. The central nervous system adaptations do. Here's a ridiculous example to make this point clear. If someone claimed that cats caused the building to explode, but it was later discovered that there was a leak in the gas main that ignited, you could only conclude that the gas catching fire was a better explanation for the explosion. You could not conclude that cats don't exist, right? We are just saying that it's more likely, or well, it has been proven, that the main difference between these strength athletes and bodybuilders is central nervous system adaptations. So let's see how is a motor unit composed. So we have the neuron right here, and we have the myofiber. So each time you train, you have a lot more of contractile units, and this motor neuron is not enough to manipulate all of them. So powerlifters, which are exposed to a major loading stimuli, they get more efficient with their muscles because they receive more neurons, so that they can manipulate more of their contractile units. What happens with bodybuilders is that they have useless contractile units because they don't have enough neurons to activate them. So in a way, you could say that you are gaining useless muscle, right? But let's keep talking about that. So first of all, when people talk about sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, they are talking about something that's long-lasting, directly influenced by training, and that makes a meaningful difference in muscle size. Long-lasting, we can already rule out glycogen loading because your glycogen reserves are completely depleted after you train. So we cannot say that sarcoplasmic expansion is driven by the increase in the amount of glycogen inside of your muscles, not only because of the things that he's going to say after that, but also because it is not long-lasting. So this fake growth wouldn't accumulate. So if it doesn't accumulate, he can't sustain his growth by just expansion of the sarcoplasm, because it wouldn't accumulate. He wouldn't see any growth. Considering that before he was with this shape, this guy right here, Jason Blaha, before he had that shape, he didn't have that much muscles and that chest, and I suppose that he had some progress. We can rule out that this progress was made because of glycogen loading, because glycogen loading does not stack, does not accumulate during periods of time. So it does not stack nor accumulate, right? Glycogen loading cannot produce steady growth. So this can't be the factor that explains sarcoplasmic growth, okay? We first have to ask ourselves, where could this sarcoplasmic hypertrophy be coming from in the first place? An increase in osmotic non-protein solids in the muscle fibers, because when you have a higher solid concentration, this is basic biology and chemistry, when you have more solids inside of your cells increase the amount of water that they store, because the concentration, the solid and solution concentration, have to be even in both places. Well, this is basic chemistry. He's going to talk about the hypothesis that glycogen can explain it. We have already explored it, because glycogen cannot stack inside of the muscle, so it cannot produce a steady growth. So if he has received some kind of growth during his period of training, we cannot adjudicate this growth to the expansion of the sarcoplasm via glycogen loading, because glycogen loading does not stack a long time, okay? So while time passes, this glycogen loading that you receive, does not keep stacking. Let's see what he says. Finally, you have glycogen, and yes, glycogen storage capacity can increase with training. However, maximal glycogen concentrations can increase with just about any type of training. They may just increase a bit more with aerobic training or the type of lifting people think will cause sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. It still cannot justify sarcoplasmic hypertrophy because it is not long-lasting, and it cannot explain growth along long periods of time, okay? Sorry, across long periods of time. Kind of a mistake right here with the English. Ultimately, glycogen concentrations simply can't make a huge difference either, though. Even when you infuse glycogen and insulin directly into a muscle for 8 hours, glycogen concentrations peak, which is the maximum amount of glycogen that you can have inside of your muscles. Or you could say the maximum amount of glycogen storage capacity that you can get with training, they peak at 4 grams of glycogen per 100 grams of muscle. 1 gram of glycogen is stored with 3 grams of water, so at most, muscle glycogen plus the water associated with it makes up 16% of the total mass of a muscle. And we are talking about someone who has achieved his maximal glycogen storage capacity, which means almost no one, okay? A 16% of the total mass of a muscle. Are you understanding what I am talking about right now? 16%, that's almost negligible. So you cannot explain the growth of bodybuilders, the growth of, for example, Ronnie Coleman. Right here, have an image of him. You cannot explain this amount of muscle with just glycogen loading alone. You cannot explain these muscles with just glycogen storage and water storage alone, because they can only increase your muscles at maximum a 16% in size. Let's compare how Ronnie was before training. Okay? Let's compare him. This is an increase bigger than 16% in size. So we cannot say that this increase has happened because of glycogen loading and water loading. So this hypothesis that you claim, which is that growth is mainly driven in bodybuilders or chronic lifters, as you call them, by glycogen loading via sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, cannot be the case, because sarcoplasmic hypertrophy can increase your muscle size at most a 16% only. So if you wanted to train only by increasing your sarcoplasm via glycogen loading, not only it wouldn't stack, as we have already said, it wouldn't accumulate across time, you would peak at an increase in size of a 16%. So your muscles have increased a 16% in size because of glycogen loading, and that's all. You wouldn't grow anymore. So if you keep growing even more, which means that your muscle fiber size increases more, your muscle size increases more than just a 16%, okay? We're talking about an increase in myofiber size, which disproves your hypothesis. Let's keep watching this. 16%, remember, 16%. That's incredibly low. It cannot explain the growth of almost anyone who he claims is training in a chronic lifting regime. And here you have the study which talks about that, okay? It appears that the maximal attainable glycogen concentration in human muscle seems to be close 4 grams per 100 gram wet muscle, okay? So that's debunked. We have debunked this sarcoplasmic muscles hypothesis in a lot of ways here. But let's keep reading this, because this percentage gets even smaller if you take into consideration other data. Okay, average skeletal muscle glycogen concentrations are closer to 1.5 to 2 grams of glycogen per 100 grams of muscle. Almost no one achieves this concentration right here, because that is the maximal concentration that you can have and you can receive, you can experiment inside of your muscles if you are a human being. If you are a human being and you are not Superman nor any superhero, the maximal amount of glycogen that you can store inside of your muscles is 4 grams per 100 grams of muscle. So if we're talking about the average trainee, we're talking about 1.5 to 2 grams of glycogen per 100 grams of muscle, okay? This concentration, I suppose, can only be achieved, and I would say it can't even be achieved. I would even talk about a concentration of 3.5 grams of glycogen per 100 grams. It can only be achieved by someone who consistently does marathon running or aerobic training, which is something that bodybuilders don't do a lot. So you should consider that bodybuilders or chronic lifters have a smaller glycogen capacity inside of their muscles. So it says right here, muscle glycogen concentrations are closer to 1.5 to 2 grams of glycogen per 100 grams of muscle. In other words, going from average glycogen concentrations to 100% maxed out glycogen concentrations, which is what you would receive because of sarcoplasmic training, okay? If you max out your reserves, considering that you are an average trainee, you are a novice lifter, which is this thing right here, your glycogen concentrations to 100% max out glycogen concentrations would increase total muscle mass by about 6 to 8%, and that would be called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Do you imagine that this growth right here, or let's say this growth right here, can be achieved by just sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, considering that their starting point for maximal glycogen concentrations inside of their muscles are 1.5 or 2 grams per glycogen per 100 grams of muscle. Considering that they maxed out, which is not even a feasible hypothesis, because maxing out would imply doing intensive aerobic training, which is not what the trainers do. But even if they maxed out their glycogen maximal capacity inside of their muscles, they would only receive a 6 to 8% extra muscle mass. So this increase in muscle mass, or this growth, cannot be achieved by just expansion of the sarcoplasm. So it is debunked, the fact that you need to increase your sarcoplasm to look like this, okay? Or you could say that he has increased his sarcoplasm size to look like this. And it isn't even a huge increase. And he also says right here, and however, a 6 to 8% increase isn't a huge increase. You wouldn't even notice this increase, so he should remain the same as when he started training. The trainers should remain the same as when they started training. Ronnie should remain the same as when he started training, and also Jeff Nivpart, okay? If they only grow by sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, or if they mainly grew by sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, they should remain exactly like they were before training. Since that doesn't happen, they are not chronic lifters, or they don't have these sarcoplasmic fake muscles that you're talking about. So your argument about sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and bodybuilders receiving mainly sarcoplasmic muscles is completely debunked. And let's see what he says right here. It isn't a huge increase, and B, since regular strength training increases glycogen storage capacity in the first place, the difference in maximum glycogen concentrations would make a difference of maybe 2 to 3%, okay? Not 6 to 8%. So we are talking about an increase in size of 2 to 3%. They should literally be the same as they were when they started training, or after some weeks of their training, since they would be affected by the repeated bout effect, and you say that this slows down your growth a lot, so that it makes you get stuck and not grow really anymore. So you basically say that, well, the repeated bout effect suppresses myofascial growth and increases or mainly promotes sarcoplasmic growth. Well, if it were to be the case, they would only have grown a 2 to a 3% in total, their muscles, from the point in which they started training, or they were novice trainees, let's say 2 months after they started training, up to this date right here. They should have remained the exact same, because they should have only grown a 2 to 3%. So we have debunked what you said, okay? You can read the article more if you want to see that what you say is wrong. You can also watch this video right here. We're not going to do so because we already have a very long video, so let's keep it on
looking at a mentally sick person. He's taking DRT. That's not what he's taking some kind of replacement, testosterone, whatever. Okay, so the testosterone is not being regulated in his blood. Testosterone levels, they move in specific ways up and down for a reason. But if you just keep taking something and it's consistent, this is a very bad thing, okay? And next thing you look at.
Yes, they downregulate sometimes because you engage in training, which depletes your testosterone storages, okay? But after training, the baseline levels of testosterone don't seem to decrease, as I have showed him in a study that he mentioned about cholesterol and testosterone. But, well, the amount of testosterone that you have after training is lower, yes. Sorry, is bigger and then lower because you deplete your storages. But your baseline level, I don't have the study right here, no, the publication in his community section, but you would have to look for something about cholesterol and testosterone. I responded to him, and he didn't respond to me at any point, which is funny. Well, I debunked the fact that baseline testosterone decreases with chronic lifting, right? So that's the main point. I don't have it right here. I will try to put it in the comments, but wait, let's keep watching this.
He's talking. It's an inflammatory response of chronically lifting, okay? So if it's chronically lifting, you're chronically breaking down more proteins, and it's a way for protein breakdown as well. So he's eating fucking these carbs. He's eating shitty carbs.
Sorry, you said that the repeated bout effect takes. You said that the repeated bout effect is the main thing that is acting in the bodies of people who chronically train. The repeated bout effect decreases the amount of damage that you receive, hence decreasing the amount of protein breakdown that you experience. So you cannot hold that argument while saying at the same time that
food, look at his fat protein breakdown as well, lifting. Okay, so if it's chronically lifting, you're chronically breaking down more proteins because it's a window for protein breakdown as well. So
You cannot hold the two arguments at the same time. You can't say that protein breakdown decreases with the repeated bout event because you receive less damage, and that it increases because he's chronically lifting. You're contradicting yourself once again.
oh, and he's eating fucking these carbs. He's eating shitty carbs, shitty food. Look at this basket. Oh my god, this food's that food, bro. And he's
Sorry, but well, we have already debunked the fact that these muscles are mainly formed by carbs, okay? But I don't see why carbs would be something bad, because you need them for insulin, which is anti-catabolic, as we have shown. It upregulates the net protein balance, and also you need carbohydrates for, well, you can also receive some glycogen from the Randall cycle, which turns, the neoglycogenesis, which is a cycle in which fat is turned into glycogen, and mainly into glucose first and then to glycogen. You can still receive some glucose and some glycogen from eating fat. In fact, your muscle fibers cannot work without glycogen, so you need glycogen for your muscle fibers to contract, which also means that even if you don't eat carbs, you're going to receive, you're going to be experiencing glycogen loading. You, genetic beast, who probably trains each week at most with a frequency of 1 per week, are also going to experience glycogen loading even if you don't eat carbs, because the fats that meat has and a lot of animal food has are being actively turned into glucose, which is quite funny because I really believe that this guy thinks that his muscles work on fat instead of glycogen or glucose. So he doesn't have any idea of basic biology, chemistry, or anatomy of the human being. That wasn't very hard to notice, but I also want to remark it right here, okay? So if you eat fat, you are also going to receive glycogen loading in your muscles. You're also going to be experiencing it. So don't think that you are not experiencing the thing that you are criticizing, okay? Because you are experiencing the exact same in comparison to people who eat carbs. You are both experiencing glycogen loading and an increase in transient size of the muscles, okay? You are both experiencing that things. Also, just to mention, animal foods can also spike your insulin, since, as I've already said, fats are turned into glucose, and glucose spikes your insulin, okay? So, that's another thing that I have to mention, and I don't know if he knows that, but okay, let's keep watching this video.
he's absorbing glycogen in the muscle because now he's a chronic lifter. So this is endurance. This is endurance.
You're also absorbing glycogen inside of your muscles because they can't contract without glycogen, okay? You're also glycogen loading because fat turns into glucose by the neoglycogenesis process. You have it right here. You have it right here. Gluconeogenesis, which is synthesizing glucose from fats, okay?
Yeah, I'm just an endurance athlete. So he's drawing more glycogen into the muscle. For every gram of glycogen, 3 grams of water drawn between the muscle into the muscle.
Yes, but you can only have at most 4 grams of glycogen per 100 grams of muscle, and most people already have the capacity to hold 2 grams of 2 grams of glycogen inside of their muscles, which means that the max amount of growth that they can experience by just glycogen loading, which wouldn't even be a long-term growth, it wouldn't accumulate a long time, so they would remain the exact same based upon this hypothesis, but the maximal amount of growth that they would experience, supposedly, by glycogen loading would be that of 2 to 3%. So considering the cases that I have presented, that is completely debunked. An increase in mainly sarcoplasmic hypertrophy by glycogen loading cannot explain the increase in size that these people have experienced. And it can't even explain the increase in size that the average trainee, which has surpassed the phase of novice training, experiences. Because if you say that they are chronic lifters, because the average trainee trains more than 1 time per week, usually 3 times per week each muscle, or 2 times per week each muscle, if you're saying that they are chronic lifters, they should only increase in size at most after increasing their glycogen storages, and also after eating a meal that increase the amount of glycogen storage they have in their muscles. They should only increase at most during their lifting career a 2 to 3% their muscle size. Considering this contradicts reality, you cannot say that chronic lifters, or well, people that train normally and don't do the stupidity that you promote, which is periodic lifting, mainly experience sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and that's why they grow, because the amount of growth that they receive is considerably bigger than the amount of growth that can be explained by the expansion of the sarcoplasm thanks to glycogen loading, okay? And also, as I have already mentioned, glycogen loading is not something that accumulates across time. So considering that it doesn't accumulate, you shouldn't have steady and long-term growth. They shouldn't grow anything. They should remain exactly as they were when they started training or were after 2 months of training. If they follow the same protocol of periodic lifting, or like you are calling it, which is just training more than 1 time per week the same muscle, okay? They should have only changed a 2 to 3%. So reality is basically, every gym in the world, I would say, basically, is disproving what you say.
Yeah, man, this is crazy. He's simply doing nothing. He's accelerated aging. This isn't proper training. If you want to create micro tears, then you need to be a periodic
You
lifter.
don't require micro tears to grow. Periodic lifting is incredibly dumb, as I have already shown in this video. And you do not increase aging by exercise. This is something that I wanted to include in Goati's video. But you basically adapt to oxidative stress, you adapt to inflammation, and since you adapt to all of these things, okay, and you receive less damage from oxidative stress, from inflammation, and from all causes, okay, in your normal life, each time you eat, you produce free radicals. Each time you move, you produce free radicals. They are some kind of metabolic waste product, okay? So you are going to receive them. But the thing is that people who train are going to receive them, okay? But are going to be less damaged by them because they have adapted to that kind of damage. So in comparison to a normal people who is sleeping in their couch, if we have someone who trains regularly and is resting right now, he is receiving less damage from this oxidative damage that is happening right now as he breathes, because breathing produces oxidative damage, and as he eats things, because meat produces oxidative damage. Each thing that is metabolized produces oxidative damage as a byproduct of metabolism.
Lifter. You understand me? But if you want to be a chronic lifter and be good at doing these exercises, you still won't get good even if you're a periodic lifter. But you'll get better if you're a chronic lifter, because now you're looking for performance and you are an endurance athlete, and so you're going to get these sarcoplasmic.
So if you say that chronic lifters, or well, people who train at a higher frequency are less strong than people who train like you, then you cannot claim the opposite right now. Everything you say is a contradiction. It's incredible how much he can contradict himself in only the span of 1 month.
Plasmic muscles when you chronically lift. Yeah, man, because you're just doing that.
Again, sarcoplasmic muscles cannot explain growth in average trainees, but who follow a training routine which is a chronic lifter routine, as you call it, or well, a training routine that involves more than 1 times, which involves training a muscle more than 1 times per week, okay?
That's just how the human body works.
Doesn't work because of that doesn't mean that this data is
You don't have any idea how the human body works.
true. Doesn't mean there are other reasons.
That data is for the average person at the street, and it still doesn't work for the average person.
It is not for the average person, and it works for the average person because it was shown in studies. They took people, which are not only average people, they also take advanced bodybuilders, which use less protein than novice bodybuilders. So this disproves your point from before that we have already debunked. We have some codes right here, which you can read. They're from these articles, if you want to. Well, what was this? What was it talking about? Okay, so the amount of protein that they need to maximize protein synthesis is proven in set studies. So the first claim is wrong, and also average trainees consume more protein than advanced trainees. Okay, you need less protein than people who have started training, and it's common sense because of the amount of damage that they receive. Okay. And because you haven't escaped the repeated bout effect because you don't train each 8 or 12 weeks, okay? So, considering that, both of the points are debunked.
Person, that is not working. You understand me?
Something I routine.
Your body will start.
Yes, it's considered with average trainees. I mean, there are studies for average trainees or novice lifters, but as I've already shown, there are studies for elite bodybuilders, and they consume less protein.
Start getting more hungry when
So you should consume less protein.
you break down more proteins. That's why you notice you're starving all the time. You working. You understand me?
Something I routine.
Your body will start getting more hungry when you break down more proteins. That's why you notice you're starving all the time. You go to work, you do
Sorry, again, the same contradiction. You say that repeated bout effect makes you receive less damage, but now you're saying that chronic lifters, which are protected by the repeated bout effect, suffer from more damage, and therefore they receive more protein breakdown. You're contradicting yourself once again.
physical job. Why do you eat more after you do a physical job? Think about that. If you're not doing anything physical during the day, you're not as hungry as you would be if you did something very physical. Why? So your body it needs to replace that which was
No, it doesn't need to replace that which was broken. You're strictly talking about daily activities, okay? So the main thing that you're using for those activities, which are not necessarily training, it could be any physical activity, which I also have to mention. You have said some stupidity like people didn't train in nature, or well, they didn't exercise in nature, but our human ancestors have to travel from one continent to the other in the past, and also because of the glaciations, they have to consistently move searching for prey. Okay, so the amount of physical exercise that they did in the past, which is the amount of exertion that their body suffered, regardless of the purpose of this exertion, because the purpose of this exertion has nothing to do with the meaning of exercise, which is a stupidity that Gochi says. The amount of exercise that they did is considerably bigger than the amount of exercise that even a regular trainee or a bodybuilder does per day. That's another fact that I wanted to debunk about you, but the main point about what you said was that you said that you eat more because you have destroyed more structural units inside of your muscles or inside of your body, right? It's obviously wrong. Not every activity destroys your muscles, nor creates muscle injuries. The main thing that you use while you train is energy, okay? The main thing that is being constantly used up is energy, not the integrity of your muscles. So you should say that you eat more because you need more energy, not because you need to replace that which has been broken because of the exercise.
Broken down.
The point out is that there is decent data on protein overeating. When we say protein overeating, we're talking about eating double or more of the
You are getting a relative amount of damage here too. I can't tell you what kind of damage. I put in my community section. You can read it. Ataxia damage. I don't know, man. There's all kinds of damage. Hypoxia stress, oxidative stress. These are
Which all of them produce activation of satellite cells, as it is shown here. First of all, osmotic pressure activates satellite cells, as I have shown in the last videos, and also we have an article that talks about ROS and oxidative damage, which is, I suppose, right here, which also activates muscle satellite cells, and it's also involved in satellite cells fusion, okay? Reactive oxygen species, which can function as key cellular signaling molecules in response to exercise. Neutrophils are capable of producing a variety of ROS. ROS means reactive oxygen species, which are related to oxidative stress, okay, including superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorous acid, and hydroxyl radical. ROS have been shown to promote growth in both smooth muscle and cardiac muscle, and it is theorized, and we cannot claim that it produces sarcoplasmic growth, not only because it cannot be explained by sarcoplasmic growth, okay, because it increases in an incredibly slow pace, but also because ROS creates damage in your muscles. So if your muscles have grown after they received damage, we can say with complete security, or we can be completely safe in regards to the fact that the injuries created by oxidative damage have been repaired by satellite cells, and your muscles have increased in size, considering that ROS promotes growth and it also creates damage. So if it creates growth, it makes your myofibers stronger, and it also creates damage. It literally is involving muscle satellite cells for those two processes, which is regeneration and hypertrophy, because your muscle fibers must regenerate before hypertrophying themselves, okay? So if it grows, it has repaired itself before. So satellite cells are involved with this. Hypertrophic effects associated with ROS may be carried out through heightened mitogen-activated protein kinase signaling. In vitro analysis has shown the treatment of calcium-2 myeloblasts with an ROS variant increases MAPK activation, with the response of various MAPK subfamilies differing over time. And ROS also modulates protein synthesis via insulin growth factor. We have another thing that proves that oxidative damage activates satellite cells, because IGF activates satellite cells, it regulates satellite cells. And also, let's see if we have some more info about oxidative damage. Let's see. Well, it seems that I don't have more info, but I have this image right here, which is a representation of what would happen in case of receiving some kind of oxidative stress or any kind of damage. Also, he's differentiating oxidative stress-induced damage from micro-injuries induced, for mechanically load-induced damage, which doesn't make any sense, considering that just because the cause of the damage has changed, the damage itself that has been produced didn't change in morphology at all, because they both damage the myofiber, and they both create the same kind of injuries inside of the myofiber. So it doesn't make any sense that you say that both of them create different responses to exercise. It doesn't make any sense. Just by receiving some kind of damage, even if they do receive this damage from reactive oxygen species, the myotubes, which regenerate the myofiber, will act in the same exact way. It doesn't matter to the myotubes whether this was induced by osmotic pressure, by oxidative stress, or anything. As a fact, you haven't even mentioned why it should matter. Do you think that they have some kind of sensor that detects whether this has been produced by oxidative damage or not? And do you think that they will avoid replacing injuries that have been produced by oxidative damage, considering that they can be replaced, and not replacing a part that has been broken isn't useful at all for your body? So it's incredibly stupid to say that they will ignore an injury just because it has been produced by ROS. What sense does it make? They can perfectly repair it, but they would conveniently ignore this injury for the sake of his argument, okay? Just because this cells said, well, we have to prove what this insane man in the internet is saying, so let's avoid these injuries even though we can repair them, okay? It's incredibly dumb.
Things that happen, this type of damage happens when you are adapted. There's adapted damage and there's unadapted type of damage. We get micro damage.
What is he even trying to say?
Sir, things that happen, this type of damage happens when you are adapted. There's
No, that it's incredibly stupid. People who started training, people who are unadapted, also suffer from oxidative damage, because once you train, let's go again to ROS right here. ROS is signaled, okay, as a response to exercise in general, okay? Reactive oxygen species can function as a key cellular signaling molecules in the response to exercise, okay? So they are activated with exercise. It doesn't matter if you are adapted or not, because these are a byproduct of the process of producing energy for your muscles. You have all of these oxidative stress molecules. If you search for them, you will see that they are produced as a byproduct of metabolic processes. So if you search for how are ROS produced, are generated during mitochondrial oxidative metabolism. So when you're producing energy for your muscles, you produce this thing right here. You cannot contract your muscles without energy. So even if you are an adapted trainee or you are a normal trainee, you will create ROS and you will receive damage from them. So it is incredibly stupid what he's saying. There's no such thing as adapted damage and non-adapted damage. Both of them will receive ROS. The thing is that people who are more trained will receive a lesser damaging effect from ROS, because while you train, the amount of damage that you receive from general stimuli decrease. And this isn't related to any decrease in hypertrophy, as we have shown, because hypertrophy occurs regardless of damage. But what was he saying? Yes. Okay, so we are back right here. What was he talking about? Yes, well, ROS. The only thing that changes between advanced trainees and regular trainees is the amount of damage that they produce, but there's no such thing as adapted damage and normal damage, because this damage produced by ROS happens in both advanced trainees and novice trainees, or you could say with unadapted trainees and adapted trainees. The only thing that varies between the both is the amount of damage that they receive from the activation of both species, okay? But there's no such thing as adapted damage and non-adapted damage. They both suffer the same consequences after training.
adapted damage, and there's unadapted type of damage. We get micro damage, we get oxidative damage, epoxy damage, different kinds of damages here, bro. So yeah, you need to eat shitloads of protein to fucking repair these damages that you're doing to your tissue, your body. Yeah, and by the way, oxidative and hypoxia doesn't build muscles, okay? The progenitor cell does.
Yes, they do build muscles, because each damage that you produce into your muscles releases agents that activate muscle satellite cells. It is explained right here. Let's see. When you destroy your muscles, well, let's see if we can find the article that I'm trying to search for. Let's see, I am not finding it right here. Well, let's use this case, for example, which is a muscle regeneration. No, let's use this right here. Well, I found the article right here. if you go to it, well, no, it's not necessary to go to it. The earliest studies of satellite cell activation in response to damage show that injury caused the release of mitogens from the muscles themselves. When you injure your muscle fibers, it doesn't matter if you do so with oxidative damage or hypoxic damage, and also we have a proof that hypoxic damage promotes growth by this study about Schoenfeld that talks about katsu training, which is they received less damage to create a hypoxic environment, and they still received how can I say it? They still received more growth in regards to their myofibers in this study right here. Not only do we have proof that hypoxic situations, like when you restrict the blood flow in your muscles, activate muscle satellite cells, but we also have the proof right here that ROS is related in a signaling pathway that activates satellite cells, which is the APK. If you search for it, MPK signaling satellite cells, you will find, well, it's better that we use this article right here. Let's not use Google because it's kind of misleading, since you can read some things that you haven't read completely, like he does. ROS is related with the activation, or well, is related with the release of mitogens, okay? And mitogens are the main things related to muscle growth, okay? As it is said right here, with sorry, not with muscle growth, with muscle damage induced growth. The mitogens are the things that are regulating this process, okay? It is right here. The early studies of satellite cell activation in response to damage showed that injury caused the release of mitogens from the muscle themselves. Okay, oxidative damage produces damage in the myofibers. So, based upon that fact, an injury in the membrane of the fibers would end up releasing this fresh extract that activates satellite cells that the study is talking about. So, oxidative damage, okay, also causes satellite cell activation, because it also causes the release of mitogens from the cell to the outside, so that is false. And also hypoxic environments, not only we have proven with a study, activate muscle satellite cells and increase myofiber size, with a study from Schoenfeld that you have in these docs, but also having an hypoxic environment increases cell swelling, okay? And increasing cell swelling ends up causing satellite cell fusion, as we have proven in the figure 4 of this study about sarcoplasmic muscles, okay, which says cell swelling triggers fusion of satellite cell nucleus, okay, so that debunks both of the things that you have said. They not only cause activation and proliferation, but also fusion.
So it only builds muscle when it's activated through micro injuries. By the way, it doesn't build muscles, okay? The progenitor cell does. It only
Yes, the progenitor cells build muscles, but the progenitor cells, which are the muscle satellite cells and the mesenchymal cells, have to be activated through injury, okay? And oxidative damage has no difference when it comes to the kind of injury that it produces into the fibers in comparison to micro injuries. They are functionally the same. Since they are functionally the same, because let's say that a micro injury would be compromising the membrane of the myofiber, okay? Oxidative damage does exactly the same. It compromises the structure of the myofiber. Since they both compromise the structure of the myofiber, they produce a release of mitogens, as it is said in this article right here. Since both, not only ROS-induced damage, but also microinjury-induced damage, which it's also important to say that oxidative damage produces microinjuries. I am just separating them based upon what he said. The correct terms would be mechanically load-induced damage and oxidative stress-induced damage. Well, in both cases, mitogens are released, and in both cases, since mitogens are released, satellite cells are activated. And we also have a study that explains how ROS, which is a reactive oxygen species, right here, is related to pathways like the MAPK signaling, which are activated through mitogens, which, as we have already proven, activate satellite cells. Sorry, I forgot what I was trying to say. Yes, ROS is related to MIPK signaling, as it is proven in this study about, I suppose, Schoenfeld, yes. And therefore, since it is related to the heightened mitogen-activated protein kinase signaling, with this signaling based upon mitogens, it signals satellite cells and also signals growth. Not only based upon this mechanism explained right here, but also based upon an expansion of that mechanism right here, which talks about mitogens in general, not only about this pathway that was mentioned about MAPK, okay? Right here. Early studies of satellite cell activation response to damage showed that injury caused the release of mitogens. Injury. injury in general. Injury is means compromising the structure of the myofibers. Okay, both mechanical loads and reactive oxygen species achieve injuries as described by the dictionary, because an injury is literally compromising the structural state of something. Since both achieve the same thing and injuries produce mitogens, they both produce satellite cells activation, so that is false.
Only builds muscle when it's activated through micro injuries. And if it's activated through hypoxia and oxidative stress, let's say the satellite cell, it'll proliferate, but it won't differentiate, you dummy.
Yes, it will proliferate and it will differentiate. Why? Because IGF-1, we have it right here, was able to influence both the proliferation and differentiation of satellite cells in vitro. As I've already shown, MAPK and ROS signaling affected IGF-1 levels. Have it right here. Okay? ROS modulates protein synthesis via insulin growth factor. Okay? And insulin growth factor regulates differentiation of these muscle satellite cells. But also we have a problem of not comprehending how the muscle satellite cell process works by itself. Okay? You don't need differentiation, which is the step in which muscle satellite cells, or myoblasts turn into myotubes when you are going through an hypertrophic process. Okay? The differentiation stage refers to the stage in which these myoblasts turn into myotubes. Okay, it's said right here. This is the regeneration stage, which is different. Sorry, the regeneration process. It is not a stage, it is a process, which is different from this process right here, which is the hypertrophic process. Okay, this process right here involves differentiation. In the middle stage of regeneration, anti-inflammatory macrophages support the regulation of myogenic differentiation and nascent myofibers. Okay? Macrophages only appear when these myofibers have received a serious injury. Okay? And they regulate differentiation so that these myoblasts fuse. Okay? They fuse. And they turn into myotubes so that they can replace the entire myofiber if it has died, or that they can replace a portion of that myofiber in case it hasn't died. So this only happens in the regeneration process. Okay, when your myofibers either die or they receive incredible amounts of damage. When your satellite cells fuse to make your muscles bigger, you don't require myotubes. Let's see how it works. You have the unloaded muscles, and we have the mesenchymal progenitors all around the muscle. Okay, and yep, that's cytoplasm and myofibers with peripheral nuclei, which means that the nuclei are in the external part of the myofibers, or well, near the external part, okay, not in the middle. Loaded muscles, activation of mesenchymal progenitors, okay, which are these progenitors between the fibers. And after that, the muscle satellite cells start proliferating by downregulating the MyoD and upregulating the PAX7 gene. It is not said right here, but that's basically what happens. And after that, after they proliferate, they directly fuse into the myonuclear. They don't have to convert into myotubes like it is said here, okay? They didn't turn into myotubes, they didn't differentiate into myotubes, but they fused into these myonuclei, okay? IGF-1, as we have said, regulates differentiation, but what kind of differentiation is it talking about? It is talking about both the differentiation stage in muscle satellite cells fusion process and the differentiation at the start of the process of satellite cells, okay? Because we have two things in which the muscle satellite cells can differentiate. We have myotubes and myoblasts. Immediately after activating, after exiting the quiescent state, the muscle satellite cells turn into myoblasts, okay? Because the MYF5 and the PAX7 are downregulated, while the MYOD is upregulated, and a new pool of muscle precursor cells is produced, okay, which are called myoblasts, and you can see that right here. Let's see. Muscle satellite cells proliferate beneath the retained basal lamina called ghost
fiber. Sorry, this is another thing, this right here. So muscle satellite cell activation follows after the expression of myoblast determination protein. MYOD is expressed when muscle satellite cells differentiate into myoblasts, and this thing right here, the MYOD levels, are regulated by the previous levels of right here of MYF5 and PAX7, okay? So it's not regulated by something external. the satellite cells will turn, okay, into myoblasts after being activated, regardless if they have been activated via oxidative stress or other things. Why? Because once they are activated in any way, shape, or form, they upregulate these two genes, which regulates MyOD, okay? So if any way of activation of satellite cells requires the activation of these two genes, and these two genes regulate this one right here, then any satellite cells that have been activated and have ended up in the secondary part of the asymmetrical division, because one part of the satellite cells go back to self-renewal and one part go to the myofibers. This is this is regulated randomly after the satellite cells start proliferating. One of those will go back to the pool, and one of those, in each pair of proliferated satellite cells, this happens, one of those will go to the muscles, okay? This happens with each division. That's why it's called asymmetrical division, because it produces a pair of cells in which one cell is going to do something completely different from the other, okay? So that cell that goes, it's a committed cell, okay, is going to differentiate in every occasion, because it is regulated internally, nothing external regulates it. And since it is regulated by something that is always activated, when they are activated, when they exit the quiescent state, they will always differentiate into myoblasts. Also, myoblasts are literally called the result of the differentiation of satellite cells. They are basically the cells that are a result of the proliferation of satellite cells. So if they proliferate, their result of or their product of the satellite cells proliferation will literally be called myoblasts. So when they proliferate, they differentiate into myoblasts, okay? Because the product of differentiation of muscle satellite cells is literally defined as myoblasts. It's literally defined as that, and also has structural differences, as we have noticed, and will happen in every satellite cells that have been activated and are committed to fusion or regeneration, okay? So that's debunked. The fact that they won't fuse is debunked. And also, something very funny that I want to show you is this thing right here, which shows how muscles can increase in size, or well, the myofibers can increase in size without damage, okay? It said right here. We have a lot of proof, okay, about why that is true. I am just going through some of them, because the amount of evidence that the main factor that induces muscle growth, myofibrillar growth, is mechanical loading is incredible, okay? It's really incredible. So let's see. Differences in proliferation sites. Let's read this right here. To examine whether muscle satellite cells proliferate on living myofibers, in myofibers that are alive after being isolated, we isolated and analyzed myofibers from overloaded muscles 4 days after autonomy and succeeded in observing clusters of proliferating muscle satellite cells on myofibers from overloaded muscle. Myofibers easily die during the isolation process if they sustain any damage. So they made these muscle fibers receive mechanical loading, okay, in this study right here, because in this study right here, which I suppose it is this one right here, yes, they investigated about overloaded muscles, okay. Autonomy induces activation and proliferation of muscle stem cells in the absence of substantial muscle damage, okay. So they are mainly talking in this study. Let's see if I can find the word exactly. Yeah, in the title, sorry, I didn't read it. Sustained expression of HALE is critical for the proliferation of muscle stem cells in overloaded muscles. So the subject that they are studying are overloaded muscles, okay? In this study right here. And it's cited again right here, so we know that they are explicitly talking about that other study that they made. And well, to examine whether muscle satellite cells proliferate on living myofibers, they isolated some myofibers of that group that was exposed to mechanical loading, okay? And to take into consideration that myofibers that get some kind of damage, sustain any damage, die easily while they are being isolated from the group, okay? Therefore, the clusters of muscle satellite cells observed on immediately isolated myofibers provide proof that muscle satellite cells proliferate on living and non-damaged myofibers in vivo, which is incredible because it's a definitive proof that you have muscle satellite cells fusing and proliferating in muscle fibers in vivo, as we have already proven that we have some factors like IGF-1 and a process described in its entirety right here. And also we have explained in the first video some things about, well, I think that I haven't explained it in the first video, but muscle satellite cells can fuse into myofibers even if there is no chemoattractant guiding them into that place, because each cell that is a result from the proliferation process of the muscle satellite cells is able to fuse with myofibers because they have the myogenic potential, as it is said right here. Mechanical loading induces nucleolocalization of JAMTAs in the mesenchymal progenitors, and muscle satellite cells subsequently proliferate beneath the basal lamina by the mesenchymal progenitor-derived factor thrombospodin. Okay, proliferated muscle satellite cells fuse with myofibers. These muscle satellite cells have the myogenic potential to fuse with with myofibers once they are produced. Okay, in response to the proliferation process of satellite cells. They are literally the result of muscle satellite cells proliferating, these cells that are able to fuse with myofibers, okay? So if this thing that we have mentioned induces the proliferation of muscle satellite cells, then we also know that these cells that have been produced as a result of the proliferation of muscle satellite cells are able to fuse, and considering that this process is initiated by muscle loading, yes, and muscle loading alone, because this study was made, the study that I'm mentioning, was made by the same authors of this study, Soichiro Fukuda, as this one. Okay, Soichiro Fukuda. The model that they are talking about is the same, okay? The model that they are describing right here is based upon this study that they made right here. As a matter of fact, I have showed you that they differentiate that study multiple times, okay? So they are talking about muscle fibers that haven't sustained any damage. In these muscle fibers, satellite cells proliferated, and since the result of the proliferation of muscle satellite cells are cells that have the myogenic potential to fuse with myofibers, we know that this process ended up producing the fusion of muscle satellite cells with myofibers. Okay, so basically we have also proven again that the fusion of muscle satellite cells can happen regardless of damage in the first place, and also that it can happen regardless of the source of damage, because the mitogens are released in both cases of ROS damage and any kind of other damage, because they compromise the membrane of the cells and end up causing the release of mitogens from the inside of cells. As it has been said right here, the extract from a crushed muscle, or the things that were inside of these myofibers that ended up in the outside part of them, can activate muscle satellite cells. Okay, so if oxidative stress damages the membranes, because it does, that's the main thing that oxidative stress causes, which is structural damage in the cells, then we know that the inside of the cells are being released outside, and the inside of the cells are comprised of mitogens, and where we know that basically it doesn't matter where the damage comes from, because satellite cells will be activated regardless.
Some guy did a video on me. I'm talking to him directly. Listen to me. They can
Yes, I'm listening, you person who hasn't studied anything that they are talking about.
proliferate, but they won't differentiate. They only differentiate when there's micro injuries, okay? They don't
No, they don't need to differentiate. They don't need to go through the differentiation process, as we have already explained, to fuse. As long as they have proliferated, and since the result of proliferation of satellite cells are called myoblasts, which means that as long as there are myoblasts, okay, there will be addition of myonuclei to the myofibers. It is that easy to understand, okay? So they will cause fusion of myonuclei into the myofibers, okay? Even taking into consideration that they haven't differentiated, because they don't need to differentiate into myotubes to cause hypertrophy. They can just fuse into microinjuries. You are confusing the two processes that we have right here, which are regeneration and hypertrophy, because you haven't studied them at all. Okay, you don't understand either of these processes. That's why you confound them, and you think that you require differentiation of muscle satellite cells for them to fuse into the myofibers, which you don't. You don't require myotubes. You don't have myotubes interacting in hypertrophy at any point, which is the result of the differentiation phase, okay? As it's said right here. In the middle stage of regeneration, anti-inflammatory macrophages support the regulation of myogenic differentiation and nascent myofibers myotubes, okay? No myotubes here. You don't require differentiation.
Don't fucking donate their nuclei to oxidative stress muscles or hypoxic muscles. Duh.
Yes, they will. We have provided a colossal amount of evidence, okay?
Numbers that I just gave you, right? When we start getting
They may replace them if they're damaged. They may replace them, but they're not going to donate extra ones. They only donate their nuclei to create muscle fibers out of damaged fibers that were micro.
You can't replace nuclei because nuclei are not lost by training. You only produce injuries. You don't lose nuclei, so you can't replace nuclei that you have lost in the myofibers because simply you don't lose them. You just lose contractile tissue, not mynuclei. That's that hard to understand. Also, it's kind of funny that he says, suppose that they lose nuclei, which is incredibly dumb because that doesn't happen, and he hasn't even shown any proof that happens. But suppose that they lose mynuclei. How can you say that the amount of mynuclei that they lose is less than the amount of nuclei that they receive, even if we take into consideration that, I think that I mentioned it in the last video, that the activation, or sorry, the damage induced in just a little bit, or a little part of the myofiber produces damage in the entire myofiber, produces satellite cell activation in the entire cell, or sorry, around the entirety of the myofiber. If you receive some kind of damage in a certain zone of the myofiber, satellite cells all around the myofiber are being activated. So that's kind of disproving what you are saying right here, okay? And let's try to find it. Let's see if I find the article that I am talking about, but you can see the previous video because I am sure that I talked about it in the previous video. Let's talk about let's see if we can find that. Yes, we have it right here. The result suggests that mitotic activity of satellite cells after localized injury occurs mainly at or near the site of injury, but that many of the dividing cells have migrated from undamaged areas distanced from the lesion site, okay? So you activate the satellite cells around your myofiber, even if you only have one micro injury in that myofiber. You activate all the satellite cells across your myofiber. So you have a lot of muscle satellite cells activated, okay? Considerably more than the possible amounts of myonuclei that you could lose. But again, you don't lose myonuclei once your myofibers are damaged, okay? But the thing is that even if you lose them, the amount of satellite cells or myonuclei that you receive is considerably bigger than the amount you lose. So this argument doesn't make any sense.
Pro-injured or traumatized. Get it, man?
double that. That's protein overeating. There is data on fat loss and recomposition, and it does make it easier to lose body fat. Right? It makes it easier to lose body fat. When you see
Why does it make it easy to lose body fat? Because you're not going through a famine. Your body sees it as you're not going through a famine, and meat is highly nutrient-dense based. That's why. And your cells just want what? Nutrients. They don't want sugar, carbs. They don't want candy bars. They don't want spaghetti, pizza. They don't want cheese, all this weird shit. What they want is nutrients. Yes.
Cheese is animal-based, okay? It's derived from animals, and it has proteins and nutrients, so it's kind of stupid that you're criticizing them, or well, it's considering that you are a carnivore, I suppose. You are going against what you preach, once again. And yes, you need carbs, because your muscles don't work without carbs. You literally need ATP for them to stretch and contract.
So meats happens to have that. Yes.
usually people do that, they try to overfeed, meaning they try to go to small calorie circles while consuming enormous amounts of this. What happens in the studies?
Well, I think that this video has gotten very long, so I think that I will do two parts, analyzing this right here and also these videos here. And I will try not to repeat myself that much because it will take almost forever to debunk this guy if I keep repeating the same things, okay? So, well, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it, and also I hope that you subscribe and leave a like so that I know that you are watching these videos and you are getting kind of educated on these topics that these people are spreading misinformation about, okay? So, well, adios.